back to another episode of the Engine Shed. I'm going to try and keep this video under 10 minutes. I say that every time, but it never works out. But before I begin, as always, I'd just like to shout out to all my new subscribers. Thank you very much for subscribing to the channel and supporting me. And of course, to all my continuing subscribers, thank you very much for checking out the videos that I make. And your support is always greatly appreciated. So thank you very much, guys. Today, I am going to finally deliver on a promise I made back in the very first video, which was to review a product by DCC Concepts that many of you would be familiar with from my very first video, which this is the original universal solenoid decoder. Now, yes, there is a decoder missing. This was a casualty of the if you remember, if anyone remembers, in fact, there was a situation a while back where I was using reverse loops. The reverse loop failed and nearly destroyed about half of these decoders, and this was one of those casualties. So 2 of them still work, so I still use this as a test unit, and you know, the capacitors nearly blew up, but they're all still intact, so I just keep it in case anyway. So it's still useful, but I've just got this to compare to the big brother, or the successor to this unit, which is the DCC Concepts ADS-8sx. So this is the brand spanker. Well, it's been around since last year, I'm pretty sure, but you know, this is the first time I've seen it. So we'll just take it out of the packaging. Always like DCC Concepts packaging. It's simple, it doesn't really detract from the actual product. The instruction manual is actually the backing of the packet, and it's just a nice leaflet, very nicely detailed and very clear instructions. So if you're ever in doubt, just always refer to your instructions. That's the best advice I can give you. So okay, so it's nice that they've got specific instructions about how to use particular systems from Lens, Hornby, ESU ECOS, which is my system, NCE, Digitrax, Rocco, Fleischmann, Cobalt Alpha. Alright, so it's just your general run-of-the-mill instructions, but we probably don't need that at this stage. I will refer to it later, but for the sake of the video, we'll skip over it. So, immediately, side-by-side comparison, and apologies, this is a different filming location for me today as well. Normally I film over on the workbench, but it's a bit bloody hot in this shed today, so I thought I'd film over near the window because there's a breeze and the lighting's a little bit better. So, so first impressions are really good. Of course, we've got this lovely new aluminium shroud casing, whatever you want to call it. Very nice touch, very clearly labelled on the actual unit. The ADS-8sx solenoid decoder for DC or DCC use with dual DCC and manual control. Roger, mate, if you're watching this video, I just had a new subscriber, Roger, was asking me about how you control this. So hopefully this clears this up for you, Roger. But anyway, the important thing about this is this has power off memory. So if you recall back in the first video, I discussed that this is a fantastic unit, but it's got one major problem, which is every time you lose power or there's a short circuit on your layout, whatever the case is, and everybody has that experience, right? The frog polarity on these decoders will reset back to the default position. Now, you take one good glance at my layout and you can see that that can cause serious problems, because, I mean, on the top layer alone, I've got 36 points. So 36 points resetting back to the wrong polarity can cause an absolute bloody nightmare. So it's something to consider, especially if you are using something along the lines of a Hornby DCC system. Of course, there's nothing wrong with the Hornby DCC system. It's a fantastic novice set. It's really good for your starter and amateur model railroaders. But when you build a layout to the size that I have, you really need something that's incredibly capable, which is why the ESU is the better option. Now, the ESU, as always I've discussed in the past, has the roll call feature of the points. So every time there's a short circuit or you power the system on, it goes through one by one by one by one, and it resets all the points back to the positions they will last. So the ESU has the memory on board to remember all that, which is fine. So if you've got an ESU, you're still pretty safe to buy one of these, but after testing this already, and yes, I have tested it, the power off memory is fantastic. It's so much better. It's just a better power management security option. And of course, you've got LED control and feedback ability, so that's more so for the DCC Concepts Cobalt Alpha system. It's not something that I'm particularly interested in pursuing, but you know, who knows, maybe later on down the line I might look at doing something like that, but for the time being anyway, it's just not something I need. So outside of that, we've got of course the shroud. We've got the aluminium shroud, fantastic for weathering protection or elemental protection. So in Australia, in the humid environment of Queensland, Australia, that's very appreciated, so thank you DCC Concepts. Immediately our power delivery is different. We've only got we've got two options. We've got the two wires in on this end and on this end, so that's a much better improvement from the old one. The old one is just a bank of terminals very close together, and you know, if you don't use the right gauge of wire, they can short circuit between each other and cause all sorts of problems. So they fixed that problem, and I'm very grateful that they did. Outside of that, the terminals are relatively the same. So you can see here on this one, we've got the solenoid, left, common, right. The switch, so Roger, if you're watching, that's for your single SPDT, I think it is. So it's a single pole double throw switch. Your momentary switch, so again, still using that, or still giving you the option of being able to manually override the point if you so wish, as well as being able to control it by DCC, so for DCC automation and whatnot. Frog power, now this, I can tell you now, this has dramatically improved the experience for me with these decoders because of that power off memory. Excuse me. It makes life so much easier. And of course now we've got a 3-port terminal for an LED. Now if you remember on the old unit actually has this as well, but there's no terminal. There's these little ports or these little solder pads on the back where you wire the LED. So if you've got a command board or something like that, if you've got these wired in one place, then you can have LEDs lit up for like a track diagram, just to make it look a little impressive. So that's always a nice feature. But as always, it's still got the same run-of-the-mill run set switch, so it's pretty self-explanatory. Every time you want to set an address, you simply flick the switch to the set, and my fingers are too big, but you switch this little switch here. Sorry about that, guys, there was a bloody noisy plane flying overhead, so back to where we were. So as I was saying, you just basically switch the little switch over here to the left or to the right, depending on what side. Switch it to the set position, which is clearly marked on the end here. I don't know if you can see that. Let's just put the camera, maybe, hopefully you can see that. Yeah, that's better. So you can see it's clearly labelled run, set. And this little button here, by the way, is a solenoid discharge unit, which is really handy. It's just a nice feature. So if you're doing maintenance or you have to swap out a solenoid, this is a nice feature, because if you're trying to reinstall one of these capacitors store power. So if you put a switch in, you can cause all sorts of problems. So that's just a nice safety feature intact as well, to make sure that you're not going to destroy this board if you ever have to change out one of the point motors. So, you know, overall, really good quality. The PCB is probably about 25-30% bigger than the old one, which is no big deal, but given the market now for point motors, DCC point motors anyway, especially from DCC Concepts, seems to be the better way to go. Things like this probably aren't as appealing anymore, but you know, the reason I stuck with solenoid is because it's easier to fit for a start. It makes a lot less noise and it's instantaneous. And that's the reason I didn't go with your tortoise motors and the like of that. So if you are in the market for a solenoid accessory decoder, my money is on this one here. You can still buy the ADS-8sx, but honestly, after testing this, I think the better option now is to go for this particular unit here. The power off memory just makes all the difference, and of course the new layout of the PCB has massively improved the experience of wiring and installing this particular unit. And of course now you actually have you have 4 affixing terminals. On the old ones you only had 2, and it was just, oh, it was a mess. But you know, apart from that, it's a much needed improvement on the old one. And for $30 more Australian, I think it is, this is $120. The old one is now 90 something dollars. My money is on this. I mean, seriously, pay the extra money, because it's just going to save you such a headache in the long run. Of course, as always, do your homework, but I've used a lot of these accessory decoders now in the time that I've been building this layout, and none of them have come close to the ease of installation and ease of use of the DCC concept stuff. And this is just an even better version of this. And you know, apart from the frog problem and of course the sensitivity to power surges, which was my fault, solid, really solid pieces of kit. And if you're in the market for it, if you want a budget, you can still buy these. By all means, go for it. But honestly, this is the better option. I would recommend this one over the ADS-8sx any day of the week. So hopefully this has cleared up some queries about this. There's no real need for me to show you how to install this, because it's very self-explanatory, and the features are relatively the same anyway as the old ones. They do the job, but just better. So guys, that's pretty much the conclusion of my very brief review of this particular product by DCC Concepts. As always, I will put a link in the description for you to check that one out. So of course the product is ADS-8sx, the brand new decoder from DCC Concepts. Now, just before I go, I thought I'd do a quick update. In the last video I did an update video of the layout and whatnot, just to show everybody what's going on with the actual layout itself. So you can probably see in distorted shot, I've just been reconfiguring this point geometry, and of course now platform 1 and 2 is being repositioned. So the central platform is actually bigger, and of course the exit over there is different. But in other news, the more important development recently is that the Eurostar is very nearly complete. You can see there that I've got 1, 2, 3 brand new coaches, and of course I've got 2 up the other end. So there's going to be 10 coaches by the time this is complete, which means it'll be a 12-car consist, and it's bloody massive. I mean, you can see that this is taking up the better part of nearly 3 meters of track. So I can't go much bigger than 10 cars, because I don't think I'd fit it on any of the platforms as it is. But it looks absolutely fantastic. I'm very happy with the results. I've just got to print off the last standard coach and the accompanying articulated bogie, and we're in business. I just need to paint and put glazing in, and job's done. Which probably brings me to another thing. If there are any subscribers out there who are, I would say, experts in the whole painting, doing some research on the colour scheme of the actual Eurostar, trying to find the right paint. But if anyone knows anything about that, you're always welcome to put a comment in the comment section. I appreciate that. Just show you the new track geometry down here. So you can see here there's a much more gentle curve going into platform 2 and platform 1, and I've included a new single slip point. So that point and that point hasn't changed. This point has changed, and the new single slip point basically means that I can now run a train up. So this is the up loop, that is the down loop. So the up loop can now bring a train all the way up into platform 1 and 2. So that's made the whole experience of running trains on this layout massively different. But yeah, so now I've got the new decoder. I can finalize the TMD. Probably not going to happen anytime soon, unfortunately. I've just got way too much on my plate to deal with at the moment, but hopefully before Christmas that's going to be done. And then we can start doing the scenery, which is something I've been looking forward to for about 8 to 12 months now. So outside of some little fine tooth comb tuning of the layout, we're nearly there, people. Nearly there. So anyway, as always, thank you very much for watching. I will catch you in the next one.